Welcome back to the channel, folks. This morning it's a little foggy up on the hill here. Just getting the sawmill out of hibernation from the winter. It hasn't been uncovered in 5-6 months. So the first thing I want to do is, now that the frost's out of the ground, I want to make sure all the bunks and rails and everything are level and happy. So I've got a laser level set up, and I'm going to use my scale, measure each bunk, and adjust the bolts to make sure everything's happy. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just measure where they're currently at on each one, get a baseline number and adjust to that. So right here we're at about 7 7/8, about 13/16. Then we come over here, about 7 3/4. So it looks like this bunk needs to come up about a 1/16 of an inch. Let's come down here, see where this one's at. Down here, yeah, we're at 8 1/4. If I get out of my own light here, about 8 1/4. So this looks like it needs to come up a little bit. As you can see, I'm pretty far up on these bolts. So that's 8 1/4. Where are we at here? That's about 8 1/4, maybe 8 1/8. So maybe I'll bring that end down. That's right at 8. Right at 8. That's right at 8. That's right at 8. So it looks like maybe 8's going to be my number. That's 7 7/8. 7 7/8. And we're back here at 7 7/8. So let's start down at the other end. See if we can get to 8 inches on the money. So to get, excuse me, so I'm at 8 1/4. So to get to 8 inches even, I need to loosen this nut up to bring the rail up to 8 inches. So I won't bore you with making you watch me do all of these. I'll just show you how I do it. You gotta make sure you keep your scale level and perpendicular to the bunk. I'm not horribly concerned with this end. I'm rarely milling logs this large. So we'll center the laser right up on 8-inch mark. That's perfect. And then we'll tighten this back down. And we're within a 32nd of an inch. That's perfect. So we'll come over here. This one's got to do the same thing. So let me grab the other GoPro and I'll show you exactly what we've got going on here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this on camera. So if you can see, I guess that shows up nicely. We're about 8 1/4. So as I loosen this nut here, and then do the same thing here. I'm going to bring this track up. So hit 8 inches even. And it doesn't matter what the number is. It's just whatever the laser level is set at. You just want to make sure they're all to that same number. So there we are, centered right on that 8-inch line. We'll see what that does when I tighten this nut down. It doesn't have to be super tight. So yeah, this came up maybe a 32nd of an inch, not quite a 16th. I don't know if you'll be able to see that from back there. So we're pretty close to the 8-inch mark. So let me do that for all the bunks, and I'll come back and let you know how I made out. So I got the bunks all leveled out. Everything's within a 16th of an inch or so. One thing I should have noted is sometimes it helps if you move your carriage over top or near the bunk you're working on. Help put a little bit of weight on it to make sure the feet are down flush on whatever foundation you have. Mine's up on some 12-inch 3-core blocks, and I know it would be more stable if I drilled down and put some piers in, but up here on the hill there's so many rocks, and I don't have an auger, so I just have to accept the fact that every spring I'm going to have to re-level this after the frost moves things around. So anyways, next up I'm going to change the oil. Normally I would recommend warming the engine up, get the oil to flow nicely, but this has been sitting for like 6 months, so all the oil's settled to the bottom. All the nasties should be settled to the bottom, so I'm just going to drain it as it is, and it's going to be really cold. It's going to take a while to drain. I just know that's what it's going to be. So I'm going to grab myself a 13 millimeter, pull the drain plug, and get started draining. And I have the head lowered down as far as it'll go. I've got got it basically between 2 bunks, so any oil that gets drips ends up on the ground and not on the bunks. And I just got a couple 1-bys sitting on across the bunks holding up my drip pan, and you can see that oil's pretty thick. It's like 33 degrees out. It's just above freezing this morning. So let's get in here and pull this. I don't know if this is the dipstick side or just a fill port side. Oh, this is the dipstick side. So we'll leave that. I'll leave it right out. So all the oil can drain out. And I'll grab a rag so I can wipe that down. I'm just going to let that drain. I don't know if you can see how the color of that oil. It doesn't look bad at all. It's got a little darkness to it, but I'm happy with that. So while that's doing that, I'll grab the air filter off and see if I can get that either cleaned and or changed. So that's pretty simple. There's just 2 tabs on either side, and just pull it up. And it's pretty dusty. Not that you can see it because I'm not on camera. So I'm going to swap this. I bought some new ones, some cheap aftermarket ones. And then I'll take this one home and hit that with the air compressor, clean that up and keep that as a spare. Even though I've got another spare here. So as you're watching that drain, here's the aftermarket El Cheapo. I'll leave a link down in the description for where I got it. We'll see how this holds up. I figure it's better to have a cheap air filter on there than either no filter or a plugged filter. So I'll just snap this back down. Maybe. What do we got going on here? Oh, what's up there? There's that. So air filter's changed, oil's draining. So I guess I'll pause it here, and I'll come back when it's done draining. Okay, while that oil's dripping away, I want to see if I can address this throttle return spring issue. My throttle return spring broke, I don't know, about 10 hours on the machine. I ended up cobbling up a couple of these little springs I had floating around, but I ended up ordering a spring kit, and I'm going to see if I can make these work. Of course, I didn't bring my needle nose with me, so I'm using my utility tool here that I always carry with me. Let's see if I can get these down in the slots. I think I'm going to have to use two because I don't think any one of these is going to be long enough to work on its own. Oof. Nope, that's going to be too short, but that's why I ended up getting a kit that had a couple different sizes, and if I put a couple of them together here, maybe, just maybe, I can make it work. Oops, if I smack you in the face. How's that? It's still not returning all the way. I wonder if I put a little bit. If I get the next shorter one in there, see what that does. Now this kit comes with all sorts of springs. I only really needed a couple, but let's get this bit out. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but these springs come with a full loop rather than a hook on the end. So I've got to bend my own hook. So I'm not sure that one's going to be stretchy enough. I just don't think this is going to stretch down there. Oh, maybe it will. Maybe it will. No, I'm afraid that's just too much stretch for that one spring. So let me put this smaller one on here. Nope, that's just not gonna do it. So let me see if I can find a combination that works, and then I'll come back. Well, I ended up just stretching that one spring out. You can see now it returns back all the way. The spring I used is a 1.2, that must be the diameter of the wire, 1.2 millimeters, 10 millimeter diameter OD of the spring, and 50 millimeters long. So it's a 47.3 or 0.047, 0.39, 1.97. I don't know if you'll be able to even read that on the camera or not. That's the spring I ended up using. We'll see how long it takes before that thing snaps. But it's returning perfect now. So let's see how the oil's doing. Well, it does look like the oil's done dripping. So I'll put the drain plug back in and grab my funnel and we'll fill it back up. So let me wipe this drain plug down. Everything looks really clean, which isn't surprising. I only have 34 hours on the machine, though I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is because the hour meter started working on its own. I never had to cut the wire on it. And I don't remember if it had any hours on it when I put it on. I don't think it did, but I'm not 100% sure. And that doesn't need to be super tight. You don't want to strip out the threads in the aluminum. So let me get my funnel. So it helps if you have one of these funnels with a tube on it. Just stick that right in there. Grab my oil I'm using. This is the, I don't think I mentioned, this is the 14 horse Kohler. I have an extra quart of oil I must have bought when I got the machine. I ended up buying 2 more for the oil change, but it's a synthetic blend 10W30. This is what Kohler recommends. And it should take just over a quart. I think it's 1.1 quarts. And this is going to take a while because this oil is cold. So I'll fast forward through this so you don't have to sit here and watch this oil flow for 10 minutes. Okay, looks like we're just about done draining it, putting the oil in. So let's put this funnel someplace safe where it doesn't get dirt grime in it. Grab the dipstick here, wipe it down. And in the manual for the engine, it tells you you just put it in and you turn it counterclockwise. You do not thread it in. You want it just till the threads are touching. And it looks like, if you can see, just at the top of the full line. So it looks like 1 quart is going to fill it up. So we'll put the dipstick back in if I can do it left-handed. There we go. And we'll drain the oil back into the container the new oil came in. And we'll recycle that. So that's it for the oil change. So the oil's changed, air filter's changed. So let's turn the fuel on, choke on. We'll give it a few seconds to fill that carb up. Make sure it's not leaking or anything. So I don't know how much fuel's even in it, or if there is even any left. I forgot to bring a gas can up, so I'm going to have to use what's in the tank. And if you notice, I took the 3 bolts out of the recoil cover and turned the recoil so it pulls this side. So if I have to, I can pull the recoil while running the throttle. Hopefully I won't have to. So let's give this a couple tugs and see if she fires up. Whew. Maybe I'm out of gas. I don't think so. Okay, choke's off. Let her idle for a minute. I do not have a blade on here, so I'm not going to rev it up too high. And one thing I want to do is, I've got a tachometer I want to put on it to see if it's revving up to the, I believe it's 3,200 RPM, I believe is what they recommend for a max. I think actual max is 36. I don't think I need to go that fast for a sawmill, but it does sound like it's, if I remember correctly, it sounded like it was running a little low. Okay, so let me go get my tachometer put on it and see what it's doing. Okay, I put a blade on it, I got the tack on it. Let's see if it'll fire up. I don't know if it's going to need choke or not. Let's see if it'll fire without choke. I guess so. So I don't know if you'll be able to read that. It says it's running about 1,500 RPMs, which I suppose it might be. So let's run it up a little bit. I don't think that's 3,800. I'm not sure how much I trust this cheap tack. It says it was running 3,800. I don't think so. So I guess I'll leave it where it is. It's not running super slow. Let's get the tack off from it. I guess next up is to put a log on it, make a few cuts, and see how everything comes out. Make sure everything's straight and level and happy that way. So let me get the tractor fired up, get a log put on here, and go from there. I know a lot of people use the forks to load a log on the mill. I prefer to use straps, that way I'm not risking hitting the rails with the forks and damaging them. And it also allows me to kind of position the log a little better up against the stops. So I use the straps. You'll also notice that I have an extra log clamp. I bought a third log clamp and another long log stop, so I can use more of the bed. I can work in the middle. The way this mill's set up on the hillside here, it's kind of hard to get the tractor all the way up near the other end, so if I'm just working with shorter logs, I can just load them up in the middle And I have a log clamp here. I have one down there for long logs and another down here for long logs. So let's get this log stop out. Not going to need that. Let's get this one lowered down so I'm not hitting it with the blade. Do the same for the other two. This is kind of a small log to be doing this with, so gotta use the shorter log stops. That's okay. Looks like its log's a little crooked, so it's only going to hit the two stops. So the first thing I need to do is grab my scale, and I will eyeball the log off the bunk. So that's about 12 inches there. What do we got down here? And about 12 inches. So this log's pretty straight. So I don't think I need to lift either end up to get it center the pith. The center of the log they call the pith or the heart. So I'll get the log clamp on it. That log feels pretty soft. Pull the dirty bark off. The dirt under the bark will dull the blade pretty quick, so it's best, at least on the leading edge here where the blade's starting in, it's best to remove the bark before you start cutting. Ooh. I'm not sure how much good wood we're going to get out of this. Okay, let me reposition the camera, get the mill fired up, and get to cutting. So let's see. I don't want anything narrower than about 4 inches, so let's get my scale out and see where we got to be for 4 inches. Let's use a tape measure. Let's get the tape measure out. So that's way up there. So bring the head up some more. Does look like it dips a little in the middle. I don't know if you'll be able to see looking down the log. So let's see. Start at 9.5 inches and see what that does. So let's get it fired up here. Well, let's make the first cut. Okay, grab the cant hook and we'll get this log rolled over. We'll clamp off. Now we want to lift up our log stops. I'm going to put a long one back down in here. If you don't, when you go to roll the logs, it'll roll right off the back of the mill. Those two will be just plenty. Make sure you don't have anything under the log. Lift it off the bunks. Make sure you're good and square, flush against the log stops. Just give that a little bit. Bring that down. Bring this one down. That should be down far enough. And clamp the log. Now grab the scale again. You'll see this log has quite a bit of bow in it this way. So eyeballing it right around 12 inches. That one's about 11 and a half. Right around 12 inches. So that ought to be good there. That'll give me 2 square edges to work with. I think I can come up 10 and a half and see what that looks like. Nope, I'm going to go down to 10 because it looks like there's quite a little bit of sweep in the log. Another thing you can do, you take your scale and go on the back side and measure to where your flat is. So that's 10 and a half to that flat, about 9 and a half to that flat, and about 10 to that flat. So if I machine or mill it at 10, it'll just about clean up all the way to this corner here. So let's try that. Double check my log stops are low enough. So, grab the cant hook. So now that we've got square edges all the way around, or on 2 sides, we'll take out our long log stops, put in our short ones. That one's in there. So, plant the log in place, doesn't move. And see what we got here. That's 8 inches right there. That'll just about clean up. That should give me some 8-inch wide boards. So let's see how that works. Okay, if you look here, this looks pretty good here, but if we come down to the other end of the log, see how narrow this is right here? I'm going to have to come down another 2 inches. That'll give me 6-inch wide boards. And I think I'm going to come down an inch at a time so that I can get a couple 1-bys out of this. And that'll, what I might do is take an inch off. No, this looks like it's pretty curved down here. So I'll take 2 1-inch boards. I can clean those up later. That'll give me 6-inch and I can get some 1x6s out of here. Let's take it down to 7 inches. Take another cut. And we'll set this aside for a minute. We'll take one more cut. That'll get us to 6 inches. So we'll undo the log clamp. Suppose I ought to move the saw head back. And this is probably light enough I can roll it by hand. And while we're here, put these 2 boards up on here. We can clean these 2 up while we're cleaning that one up. Lower these down. So let's see where we're at here. We go up 8 inches. It's not going to quite clean up. Let's go down to 7. That looks like it'll clean up. Now I'll flip over the 1x here. We'll mill those down to 6 inches wide. We're pretty much cleaned up on that face. We'll clean up the other face. Take it down to 6 inches. Now we've got a couple of 1x's we can use for stickers. And now we've got 3 1x6s here. Assuming I did my math right, so there's 2 here. And 1 here. Now we'll take a couple more 1-inch cuts and end up with a 2x6 in the end. Okay, we'll go down to 2 inches. Our final cut. Okay, so I've got the fuel shut off on the engine over there. I'm just going to set up the camera here and we're going to take a quick peek at the results. So I've got about 6 1/4 there. Come down here. And about 6 inches even. So we are off a little bit down at this end. I don't know why we ended up about, yeah, maybe closer to 6 1/8. Let's see what the thickness looks like. Probably a lot of it has to do with this end of the log hanging off the bunk. Yeah, this is 6 inches here, so this just flexed a little bit down here, which is okay for what I'm building. So if we check here, I'm at exactly 2 inches. Check down here, exactly 2 inches. So the blade height's set, the scale on the mill is set. Let's flip it over, measure the other side, and make sure this is 2 inches to make sure the, yep, that's exactly 2 inches. So this is just a little thick from where it was hanging down. The end of the log was hanging off the bunk. That's okay. That's going to do it for today. I'm going to let the engine cool down, run the carburetor out of gas, hopefully, and clean up a little bit. I've got a whole mess of offcuts over here and offcuts over here. So I'll load them up on the tractor and get those cut up for firewood. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.